Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here. And this one should be interesting. This one should let us know how far an authoritarian tech company that works arm in arm with NASA on quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and arm in arm with various intelligence agencies in various capacities, aka Google, YouTube, Alphabet, how far they're willing to go in their terms of service to censor something they may not want you to hear. Now, as a lot of you guys know, we're not allowed to say Erica Caramello Bar's real name. And anybody who's been watching this program, that is the Ukrainian whistleblower, that scandal that it has so many problems with it at this point and had so many problems from the beginning. It's disturbing, it's disgusting, it's laughable. But I played a video where Louis Gohmert, a member of Congress, dared say Caramello Bar's name. And although it didn't really go against anything, and again, YouTube likes to lie, okay? See, that's the thing. You think these tech companies have to tell you the truth? Of course, it's in the terms of service. Why would they have to tell you the truth about anything? So they said it was because I had misleading tags. I didn't even have any tags in the video. Okay, there were zero tags. I don't put any metadata in there because it doesn't matter for my videos. Don't you get it? I mean, they're bragging about downplaying this type of stuff 80+%. Okay, so that video is just private in every country. I'm the only person that can see it. Okay, and that's it. You know, so they took that one and they kind of didn't ban it completely because it's private. So right now, you know, I'm not going to say anything regarding election fraud. That's not what we're going to do here. We're going to let a member of the Senate at a review of irregularities in the 2020 election that's being held say some things about election fraud. And we're going to see if this is allowed to stay up on that platform. So thumbs the video up, subscribe and share. We got a little precursor for you because there's some good times, basically stuff going on here with some Russian disinformation back and forth. And I love a good catfight on the Senate. So we'll play that run up to while they're trying to announce Rand Paul. And then we're going to play Rand Paul. And he's going to say some words that apparently you're not supposed to say on this platform. But if you're reporting on it like I am, because I'm not going to say anything one way or the other, YouTube, okay, then you're supposed to be able to do that. So we'll get there. Remember, on this platform, we've now been, 9 months demonetized? When was it? April. So no, it's eight and a half months. 8.5 months fully demonetized on this platform. $5, $10, $15. It means the world to me. Big donors, you mean the world to me. Hopefully they haven't started sticking ads on my content yet, as I have reviewed the process and still not heard back. Weird. We did it live on air. We like to share everything with our audience, YouTube, because we got nothing but love in our hearts. And, you know, we're not really going against the terms of service. We're showing you footage from the halls of government in which our elected officials are discussing issues. And that's the kind of stuff that you're banning or turning private? Weird. It's odd. It's odd. So big donors, couldn't do it without you. Appreciate everybody. Are you on the Rockfin? Have you not made the free Rockfin account? Monday through Friday, 11 a.m., we usually go live. That's Eastern time. Now, on Monday and Tuesday, this time around, we gave you 2 huge interviews that you probably couldn't get anywhere near on YouTube. One, discussing COVID-19 84's vaccine. That's about an hour and a half plus. 2 doctors, really great stuff there. And then the second one is with Scott Jensen, okay, and basically how the numbers and the death certificates are actually being filled out. And that's a 30-plus year doctor, okay, and he's also a state senator for a very long time as well. So those are still free over there. Just create the free account. Remember, you get all the archive stuff, all the premium stuff, and everybody else stuff for $9.99 a month if you do that as well. And there's a ton of creators coming over. There's a ton of great creators over there. You want to learn about long-term election fraud that's been proven over decades and decades and decades? I suggest you check out the Convo Couch. Pasta and Fiorella. Just saying. You know, we're not talking about this election. Not on this one. So Guys, thumbs the video up, subscribe, share, join the Burmist Brigade. Check out all the documentary films after this video. They're free in the playlist section. Also, pretty harmful content, apparently. Loose Change, Final Cut, Fabled Enemies, Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined, and Shade the Motion Picture. So, what I want to do is I want to start with the cat fight and let you watch that. Because who doesn't love a little back and forth about some Russian disinformation, okay?
Precisely why I brought that up in my opening statement. That should provide comfort that we have that paper backup. But I just have to talk about Russian disinformation because the people peddling it are not on my side of the aisle. Senior Democrat leaders, including Ranking Member Peters, were involved in a process of creating a false intelligence product that was supposedly classified. They leaked to the media that accused Senator Grassley, the President Pro Tem of the Senate, and myself of accepting and disseminating Russian disinformation from Andrei Derkach. I'd never heard of the person until they brought it up. Senator Peters introduced that false information, Russian disinformation, into our investigation record. 50 people associated with the intelligence community after our Hunter Biden investigation and the revelations of the Hunter Biden computer said, oh, this is Russian disinformation. Now we find out, no, it's a real investigation by the Justice Department. So it's just galling, and I
mean, now we find out. Yeah, but again, we haven't gotten to the good stuff. There's a good cat fight coming. But I mean, all that stuff right there is pretty common sense. I hate to make that about right or left, especially when there are larger issues at play, especially with Julian Assange, WikiLeaks, and this Russia narrative constantly, that they're the big enemy.
Just have to point out that the purveyors of Russian disinformation, Hillary Clinton's campaign, the DNC, the Steele dossier, the Ranking Member Peters accusing Senator Grassley and I of disseminating Russian disinformation, that's where the disinformation is coming. That's where the false information, the lies, the false allegations. I can't sit by here and listen to this and say that this is not disinformation, this hearing today. This is getting information we have to take a look at to restore confidence in our election integrity. We're not going to be able to just move on without bringing up these irregularities, examining them, and providing an explanation, and see where there really are problems so we can correct it moving forward.
Now, I just want to say this. Later on, Ken Starr, who obviously was the attorney for Clinton during that impeachment hearing, or one of the attorneys, he openly discusses, for instance, the Jimmy Carter, James Baker federal election suggestions after they had their committee, right? And we've played that video again and again and again here, where there's supposed to be a 1% to 2% audit of all these machines. That never happens. Paper ballots that you get, aka receipts on the way out, that never happened. That mail-in voting would be rife with fraud, one person, one vote, right? Real ID Act, all that stuff. We've played it here, okay? So none of this is controversial yet. Okay, and by the way, we haven't even gotten to the good cat fight. Don't worry, folks, we haven't even gotten to Rand Paul yet. So we're keeping this video alive. We'll see if they pull it midstream for Rand Paul daring to say what he did.
Senator Paul.
Mr. Chairman, I got to respond to that. I mean, you're saying I'm putting out information. Well, one, it had nothing to do with this report.
You lied repeatedly.
I did not.
You lied repeatedly in the press that I was spreading Russian disinformation, and that was an outright lie. And I told you to stop lying, and you continue to do it.
Mr. Chairman, this is not about airing your grievances. I don't know what rabbit hole you're running down.
You
right
talked
now.
about Russian disinformation.
Down rabbit holes.
Senator Paul.
This is simply not what we're dealing
Senator Paul.
with. But, Mr. Chairman, you can't make these
Judge
false
Starr.
allegations and then dropping it there. That is why this
Senator
committee
Paul.
needs to return back
Judge
to its
Starr,
Senator Paul.
partisan things. This is terrible what you're doing to this committee and all the great work that you talked about.
It is what you have done to this committee.
It is not
falsely
the case.
accusing the chairman of spreading disinformation. Nothing could have been further from the truth, and you're spouting it again, which is why I had to respond. Senator Paul.
Mr. Chairman,
Judge Starr.
This is outrageous.
Judge Starr.
It's outrageous. We sat here and lied for 4+ years. We used the Logan Act. We said that, Assange was essentially a Russian agent as well. Recently, by the way, and remember, I'm just putting this out there before we get to Rand Paul, the cyber attacks that Whitney Webb and others have been warning you about, right? Because Klaus Schwab and the Eco Gang, right? The Predator Class Gang, the Global Gang, the Good Guys Club have been warning now of a cyber attack could really do the business to us. And what do we get? Treasury Department hacked. Big, large-scale hack on the Treasury Department. And they're pretty sure it was Ruskies. It was Russia again. So I know we had some fun there, guys, and we're pretty deep into this video. But let's get to it, because here comes Rand Paul.
It's been alleged that 60 courts have refused to hear these cases. Therefore, there was no fraud in the election. I guess another way of looking at this is that the court cases have been refused for procedural and technical reasons. When you see the 60 court cases rejected, do you think that's a conclusion by our court system that there is no fraud, or do you think that the court cases were primarily rejected for procedural reasons?
Right, Senator Paul, it is my understanding that the vast majority of these cases were rejected for rightly stated procedural reasons, as opposed to merits-based or substantive-based evaluations.
So what that means is, just in layman's terms, is they didn't even look at the evidence, not significantly at all. Let me repeat that. It's not like they even breezed through any of the evidence. These things have been dismissed not because there was not evidence, but based on red tape and procedural reasons. And now, Ken Starr's going to champion the separation of states, especially in this case, right? And that basically the don't tread on me, Texas can't get involved in the national election, and neither can these other states that signed on.
And of course, we saw that very recently, and I think most dramatically, by the Supreme Court's unanimous rejection of the bill of complaint filed by the Texas Attorney General, my home state here. And the entirety of the decision was based upon the legal concept of standing. You just don't, Texas, have standing to object to what happened in Wisconsin or Pennsylvania or whatever. And that is a reasonable ruling. There are those who would quarrel with it, in that we are a United States of America, and if something bad happens in one state that ends up having an effect on another state, we have such respect for our states as sovereign entities within our union that the argument is, I think, quite reasonable. And I think others think it's quite reasonable that at least the matter should have been heard under the original jurisdiction. I think that's a key example.
Yeah, and I think it's important, though, that we look at this and understand what courts are saying and not saying. The courts have not said there wasn't fraud. The courts just simply didn't rule on or hear from the fraud. I do think there's an important issue here, though. The fraud is one aspect of this, and I think courts have historically been reticent to get involved in elections and to look at fraud. But moving forward, we've got to change the rules or reevaluate our state rules in order that this doesn't happen again. We can't just sit by and say, we're going to let it happen again. There is another important aspect to this, though, that is a legal aspect that I think does need to be heard by the courts, and I don't know if it can be heard beyond the election, but I think should. And this is the question of whether or not people who are non-legislators can change the election law. And this happened in many, many states. Probably 24 states decided to accept ballots after the election. 24 states decided they could mail out applications or mail out ballots, all without the will of the legislature. Do you think there's any hope for any of this being heard, Judge Starr, outside of the concept of changing the election? Is there any possibility any court's going to ever hear this and say that it was wrong that secretaries of state changed the law in the middle of this pandemic without the approval of the legislature? Or do you think there's no hope because it's mixed up in electoral politics? Judge Starr.
I think there is a possibility because this issue may return in light of this unprecedented use of mail-in ballots, and the concern that is a bipartisan concern, again, the Carter-Baker Commission.
So again, the Carter-Baker Commission, lots of other concerns yet. don't worry. Rand Paul hasn't dropped the hammer yet. But yeah, 24 states, mail-in ballots that in no way got contested at all. I'm just going, including in my former state of New York, by the way. Just letting everybody know.
That we need to look at these issues. And so I think there is a doctrine, Senator Paul, to essentially say this issue may recur again, so it should not be washed out as being moot, because there's a very important principle here, as I made in my opening statement and in my written statement. The Constitution is very clear that it is the prerogative of state legislatures to determine what these rules and laws are. And that was, I must say, flagrantly violated in Pennsylvania and perhaps elsewhere as
You know, that was flagrantly violated in Pennsylvania. Just a reminder, a state, when I went to bed, okay, you know, after Zombie Joe came out and he said it was bedtime and said they'd heavily, you know, when it was all said and done, they'd win Pennsylvania, down by 700,000 votes. And then later on when Trump came out and he talked about Pennsylvania and what was going on and everything else, right? And now we have Pennsylvania where there might be a problem, even according to Ken Starr, who just smiled his way through the answer, knowing what, you know, basically went down.
As well.
Yeah, see, I think the legal question there is a very easy one to decide. I think even as a physician, I can figure out that the Secretary of State cannot create law. I do think, though, that many of us who wanted this to be heard by the Supreme Court and are disappointed actually also might be disappointed by the precedent of Bush versus Gore, in the sense that I think Bush versus Gore's precedent is shutting down elections that have been certified. They weren't going to continue to count the hanging chads. The Secretary of State had certified it. So I actually think that the Bush versus Gore precedent actually argues against the Supreme Court overturning certified elections. Do you have an opinion on that?
I don't have an opinion on that specifically. I think that Bush v. Gore stands for this basic proposition. You cannot have changes in election laws after the fact. You must, in fact, be faithful to what the state legislature has done. That's also what Justice Alito said in his opinion, I think essentially condemning, but certainly identifying as a huge issue what had happened in Pennsylvania. So I think all in all, Bush v. Gore is just a reiteration of our constitutional structure.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, as we go on with this, I think it's important that we not stop here. A lot of the laws that have to be confirmed and I think reaffirmed are state laws, so it's not in our purview, but the state laws are set and then we have federal elections. So what we've heard about what happened in Wisconsin, what happened in Nevada, I think is absolutely true, and we have to prevent it from happening again. I think state legislatures will need to reaffirm that election law can only be changed by a state legislature. So I think there's a lot of work to be done. While we will not dictate it to the states, I think we should have hearings going into the next year, hearing from state legislatures and what they're going to do to make sure election law is upheld, not changed by people who are not legislators. And we do have an interest in that. I don't want it to be federalized. Many on the other side of the aisle would just soon federalize it and mail everybody a ballot, and we'll have this universal corruption throughout the land. But what I think we need to do is keep it at the state level, but we can't just say it didn't happen. We can't just say, oh, 4,000 people voted in Nevada that were non-citizens, and we're just going to ignore it. We're going to sweep it under the rug and say, oh, the courts have decided the facts. The courts have not decided the facts. The courts never looked at the facts. The courts don't like elections, and so they stayed out of it by finding an excuse, standing or otherwise, to stay out of it. But the fraud happened. The election in many ways was stolen.
Whoa, Rand! Whoa, Rand! I don't know if you can say that on YouTube. Boy. I mean, does that mean they're going to pull the feeds that are over, on Fox News and CNBC and all that stuff? Or maybe they're just going to mute Rand saying that. Huh. Man. Whoa.
And the only way it'll be fixed is by, in the future, reinforcing the laws. And the only last comment I would say on what Mr. Krebs, and he can speak for himself, but I think his job was keeping the foreigners out of the election. It was the most secure election based on security of the internet and technology. But he never has voiced an opinion, he's welcome to today, on whether or not dead people voted. I don't think he examined that. Did he examine non-citizens voting? So to say it was the safest election, sure, I agree with your statement if you're referring to foreign intervention. But if you're saying it's the safest election based on no dead people voted, no non-citizens voted, no people broke the absentee rules, I think that's false. And I think that's what's upset a lot of people on our side, is that they're taking your statement to mean, oh, well, there was no problem in the elections. I don't think you examined any of the problems that we've heard here. So really, you're just referring to something differently is the way I look at it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, there you go. Rand Paul spitting some hot fire. Guys, all the documentary films are free. Loose Change, Final Cut, Fabled Enemies, Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined, Shade the Motion Picture. If you want to learn about zombie Joe Biden and 9/11 and the cover up there, go check out Fabled Enemies right now for free. If you want to understand why Tucker Carlson is attacking Loose Change, Final Cut's right here. If you want to learn about the genesis of global governance, collectivism, authoritarianism, and many of the organizations that surround it and empower its existence over history, Invisible Empire and New World Order Defined. And if you want a special someone with a lot of love in his heart, like Bill Gates, to be explained to you amongst many other hard truths in life, Shade the Motion Picture. They're all there free right now, right here in the playlist section. Thumbs this video up, not even 200 thumbs up. Come on, guys. Thumbs the video up on the way out. Subscribe, share, join the Burmis Brigade, huh? We do it several times a day. We do it live, 11 a.m. Monday through Friday, over on Rockfin exclusively. Make the free account, make the free account, make the free account. Still 2.5 hours of exclusive free content over there on COVID-19 84, the lockdowns, the vaccines, you name it. Too hot for YouTube. Hopefully this video's not. I don't know. I played a government official saying stuff about fraud in the election. I'm not weighing in. I'm just reporting on it. Guys, couldn't do it without you. $5, $10, $15 means the world to me. Big donors, thank you so much. Guys, I love you. We'll be back a little bit later